Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. And some breaking news coming in the last about half an hour, 45 minutes or so at the time of recording here. Now, we knew tonight's edition of Monday Night Raw was certainly going to be an interesting one. Of course, previously last week, it was announced that the main event of tonight's edition of Monday Night Raw would be a Raw Tag Team title match. It would have Randy Orton and Riddle defending the Raw Tag Team Championships against the almighty WWE Champion Bobby Lashley and MVP in the main event. They spent all last week building up to that main event this week. Well, we found out Friday on Super SmackDown on Fox from Madison Square Garden that match wasn't going to happen. Instead, we were going to have a WWE Championship main event. We were going to have Bobby Lashley defending the WWE Championship against Randy Orton. That match originally was scheduled for Extreme Rules later on this month. Well, plans always can and will change. Now, we are going to get that main event tonight. We are going to get Bobby Lashley versus Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. But what we might have tonight is a Money in the Bank contract cash-in, because SmackDown superstar Big E has revealed his intention to cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase. Now, this came in the last, as I mentioned, couple of minutes or so. And Big E has said that he plans to cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase to become the new WWE Champion on tonight's edition of Monday Night Raw from Boston, Massachusetts. Now, the SmackDown superstar took to Twitter this afternoon and announced that he is looking to cash in during tonight's edition of Raw to win the WWE title. He sent out a tweet, quote, "Let's let that cat out of the bag, ... I intend on cashing in my Money in the Bank contract tonight and cashing in to become WWE Champion." As I mentioned, tonight's edition of Monday Night Raw will be headlined by the almighty WWE Champion Bobby Lashley defending against Raw Tag Team Champion Randy Orton. Now, obviously, if Big E does indeed cash in to win the WWE Championship tonight, we will be going live straight after Raw, or straight after it happens. I am actually going to stay up and watch tonight's Monday Night Raw for my sins, it must be said, because WWE, I don't have a lot of patience with WWE anyway. So if they make me stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning to watch a 3-hour edition of Monday Night Raw and then it doesn't happen, I guess shame on me. I can't blame them for that. So it's interesting. It's interesting because it was met with, should we say, mixed response on social media. I think what it was met with first is people are excited because we could be looking at the possibility that Big E wins the WWE Championship tonight and finally becomes a world champion in WWE. That's exciting. That is exciting. I, like many people, am excited, and I hope that happens. But I think this is where I kind of feel about it at the moment is that, and I mentioned this on social media in a response to a tweet by Ryan Satin, and we'll talk about that in a second, that I just don't know if I trust WWE. That's my biggest problem with them right now, is that I don't know. I've just got such a big amount of cynicism and skepticism when it comes to WWE and the product and their booking decisions and their creative decisions. It's the Mick Foley principle. It's what Mick Foley was saying the other day. There is just this sheer lack of trust when it comes to WWE and booking and the way they write wrestling, the way they write television, the way they script promos, the way they script matches. There's just so much cynicism towards that, and I think that comes into it here. And look, make no mistake, I am excited. I'm very excited because I hope Big E does win the WWE Championship tonight. I think he can be something spectacular for this company. I think everyone, I've been saying that Big E can be a world champion for WWE for the last 3 or 4 years or something like that. I mean, it really feels like it's taken that long, hasn't it, to really get to a point where WWE finally are utilizing him as a main event singles star, or at least they're acknowledging the potential that he can be a main event singles champion for the company. So I'm excited for that, but is it a ratings ploy? Yeah, of course it is. Of course, there's no doubt about that. If you say that it isn't, and then I think we're being naive here. Is it completely in response to AEW? I think it's partially. I don't think it's completely in response to AEW. We did the WWE news video earlier today, and we spoke about how WWE obviously saw Dynamite on Wednesday, saw the ratings when they came out on Thursday, and saw that Dynamite beat them in the key demo last week. Now, it didn't beat them in total viewers or anything like that, but it beat them in the key demo, which is important. And USA Network, NBC Universal, would be going to WWE going, wait a minute, that show on Wednesday night got more people in the demographic we're looking for as a television network or an advertising executive would look for. Go, wow, they were top of cable. Now Raw usually is top of cable without football competition, but that might change this week as well because, of course, Monday Night Football's back tonight as well. It's the start of the NFL season, started last week. So I think those two things combined has made WWE think, right, we're going to put a WWE title match as the main event because we're looking for the ratings, but that might not be enough because the product, especially on Monday nights, not so much on Friday nights for SmackDown, but certainly on Monday nights, the product is so ice cold and there is just no reason to tune in, to the point of they had a WWE Championship match announced for the main event and still people didn't really care for tonight's episode. They didn't. I didn't. And I mentioned this on social media as well. The fact that we're now at least a little bit curious. You know, fans that are a bit cynical or skeptical to WWE are now at least a little bit curious about what they're going to present tonight. That's a massive shift in what the feeling has been to Monday Night Raw for a really long time. Very rarely do you go into episodes of Monday Night Raw nowadays going, you tell you what, I'm interested to see what they do tonight. I'm interested to see what they're going to present or how they're going to book this or what their plans are. That just doesn't happen. That doesn't happen for Raw at the moment because the product's so ice cold. As I mentioned, even to a point where you've got a WWE Championship main event and you still have got people like, I don't care. I really don't care. So I will give them credit for that. So of course it's a case of looking for ratings. Of course it's a case of trying to deliver something that the audience will tune in for. And I'm not saying that as to discredit WWE. I think the reason why people bring it up so quickly and so readily is because it's so transparent and it feels so reactionary. Because people would say, well, I saw one person say, well, when it came to AEW and CM Punk, they did a similar thing, right? They kind of leaked out that Punk was going to be there on his debut and it did a big rating. You didn't see people complaining about that. Well, there's a massive difference between that and what's happening tonight, because you know for a fact, because the stories are there, not just in the past few weeks, just historically, WWE doesn't do pre-planning. They don't plan things out weeks and weeks in advance, especially for stuff like Raw, which isn't the priority. SmackDown is. You know for a fact that maybe a decision was made last night or yesterday or wherever over the weekend at some point. Okay, we're going to have Big E cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase and become WWE Champion. It's just that quick. Or maybe it was a case of he was going to be at Raw today and suddenly they decided, actually, you know what, he's going to cash in tonight. It's that quick. And I think that's why people point out, well, it's a ratings grab because it feels very reactionary. It's one thing if this was planned out weeks and weeks in advance. WWE can claim it was, but it isn't. It isn't, and we know that. And people can say, once again, well, you're being skeptical, you're being cynical to the WWE product. And the answer would be, yeah, I am. But that's WWE's own fault. They've built that in themselves into their audience. They've built that negativity into their audience through bad booking and illogical booking and just writing bad storylines or producing bad television. So I think that's the reason why, even though people are excited about this tonight, still despite the fact that people are excited, people are still skeptical, because I wouldn't put it past WWE, and I really wouldn't put it past them, is that Big E will be all over the show tonight, right? He's announced prior to the show, his intention is to cash in the briefcase. Okay, so he'll be on the program tonight, and maybe he'll be sitting ringside for that WWE Championship main event. Maybe he'll be in the opening segment, and it'll be Big E interrupting, or Big E will open the show and out comes Bobby Lashley, and Big E says, I'll let you have your match tonight against Randy Orton, but I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be ringside, and I'm going to be waiting, blah, blah, blah. And he's sitting there, and somehow Lashley retains the WWE Championship or whatever, and Big E still, does the big ending, and it looks like he's going to win, and then something happens, and he doesn't cash in the briefcase, and we still get to a point where Big E's still holding the briefcase, Lashley's still holding the title, and it was kind of all for nothing. It was just one big tease to get the ratings. And the issue is with that is the ratings still could be big, and people would say, see, what a success. But it's that principle of you sell out your restaurant in the opening night, but the food sucks and nobody comes back. That's the problem you could have with something like that. If you do a tease and you don't necessarily deliver, or you don't necessarily have to deliver, but if you don't deliver in the way that the people want or the people would like you to, and they feel kind of used, oh, you used me, you got me to tune in, and you didn't deliver what I wanted, less people will tune in next week. That's kind of the problem. So it's a difficult situation still for WWE. That even though they've announced that Big E's his intention is to cash in tonight, doesn't necessarily mean he's even going to cash it in, or certainly going to become the WWE Champion. So there's lots of different things to look at here. And again, I just have so much skepticism when it comes to WWE booking that I don't know. I could certainly see a situation where they have planted the seeds for Lashley and Goldberg to a point that maybe Lashley does beat Randy Orton tonight and Goldberg comes out, spears Lashley, jackhammer, Big E cashes in, becomes WWE Champion. That allows Lashley versus Goldberg to face off at Crown Jewel, not for the WWE Championship, and Big E can then start a WWE title reign on Raw. That's a possibility. I don't know if Goldberg's scheduled to be there or not tonight, but again, that's a possibility as well, that they could go in. Again, I lean more into Big E's going to be there, but I still think coming out of Raw tonight, we still have the same WWE Champion in Bobby Lashley. Unless the only thing I can think of is that that Extreme Rules match moved on Friday because plans significantly had changed going forward. Because at Extreme Rules, we're going to get Big E versus Lashley instead, because Big E's going to be the WWE Champion. And then coming out of Extreme Rules, you've got Lashley versus Goldberg and Big E versus whoever. I can certainly see that. So I'm a bit 50-50 on it, but again, I'm just skeptical. I am skeptical, but I don't think that's something on me. I think that's something on WWE, to be honest with you. Now, the announcement was made by Big E after it was reported that he was going to be on the show tonight. It was a report by Fightful Select, of course, which is their Patreon service, so be sure to check that out. That said that the Money in the Bank briefcase holder was planned for tonight's Raw show as of 12 noon Eastern. The word was that Big E was scheduled for, quote, numerous segments and will be, quote, all over the show, at least as of this morning. And of course, we know when it comes to Raw, the script has changed multiple times for the shows in the past few weeks, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that could happen once again tonight. As I mentioned previously, Big E had recently teased that he would cash in the briefcase on Roman Reigns or Bobby Lashley, and obviously he then confirmed it. So it might have been a case once again of Fightful getting sort of really ahead of the curve and WWE thinking, right, the news is out there, let's announce it. If people know, let's announce it, let's hype it, and then maybe more people will tune in. It's interesting when it comes to plans for Raw tonight as well. This is kind of off topic, but obviously we spoke earlier today about Samoa Joe vacating the NXT Championship, and it looks like Joe at least one point was planned or scheduled to be on the show tonight when it comes to hyping up NXT's revamp on Tuesday. Now, Sunday night, Samoa Joe announced that he was relinquishing the NXT Championship due to an injury and not being cleared by WWE Medical. Well, another report by Fightful Select has reported that this morning, the original Raw script called for him to actually appear on tonight's show. Now, they're not sure what Joe was scheduled to do or if he'll remain on the program. Of course, there are some people that think him dropping the championship or vacating the title was a big work in the first place, and it's just part of the NXT revamp, and he could show up tonight on Raw in another capacity or something like that. So he still could show up on the show. That's not out of the realms of possibility either. But Fightful were told it was in relation to promoting the relaunch of NXT on Tuesday night, when we're talking about his scheduled appearance previously for Raw. Now, they said they're going to find out or work to find out more, at least about what Joe was slated to do, but some NXT talent had been made aware of internal rumors that Joe was planned to appear tonight. And this might have been a kind of a situation of why Joe underwent more medical testing. It might have been a case of maybe he was planned to get physical on tonight's show, and because he was planned to get physical, he had to undergo some kind of, maybe again, some concussion testing. He has to do it every time before he does a match or gets physical or whatever, and maybe he didn't pass, and that's why he had to vacate the NXT Championship. Who knows? So that's certainly something to consider as well. Now, this story continues because, as I mentioned previously, Joe was meant to be scheduled for the show. Other names might be scheduled for the show. Joe might still be scheduled for the show. We know that Big E is scheduled to be all over the show. Now we know when it comes to all over what that's going to be. So it's very interesting, and reportedly, again, this is a Fightful Select report, there have been big changes to both Raw and NXT based on the original plans. Fightful reportedly have said that there was major reshuffling on both shows, although it happened much sooner than usual, which seems to be when the scripts are already finalized. Now, last week, As I mentioned, WWE announced that Randy Orton vs. Bobby Lashley was moved from Extreme Rules to Monday Night Raw. Fightful then revealed earlier that Big E and Samoa Joe were planned to be on Raw as of this week, though that was before Samoa Joe announced that his injury and he was vacating the NXT title. Obviously, Joe's injury has caused things to change for NXT as well as Raw because he had to vacate that title. Now, Fightful have been told that the lineup changes are already happening for Tuesday's NXT as well as Monday Night Raw. They have been told that several of those changes for Raw and NXT were not within the control of the company, implying that it might have to do with illness or injury or something like that. Reportedly, NXT talent still has not been clued in for much of these changes to the NXT brand. So there's a lot of uncertainty or maybe misinformation as to what's going on right now, and it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. Now, again, I wanted to point out what Ryan Satin had said about tonight's Big E news about him possibly cashing in and all that kind of stuff, because I thought that it was important to point out. Now, Ryan Satin put out the following tweet, and I don't mean this to be, bashing him or starting a war or anything like that, but he said, quote, "Instead of being excited about a possibly cool thing tonight, way too many people are tweeting about how it's only for ratings, bracket like every show, or criticizing it before the cash-in even happens." I don't understand that. Now, I understand what he's trying to say. I do understand what he's trying to say. I also understand, and I think everyone has to take this into account. I'm not saying that Ryan Satin is under the WWE payroll, because he's not. He's contracted to Fox, not WWE. But he obviously is slanted to being pro WWE, covering WWE. He's a WWE analyst for Fox. And I understand his points that when you have news like this, people go, oh, it's only a ratings grab, it's only this, it's only that. I understand that. And I wish we were in a more positive world or a more positive environment where people celebrated stuff like that. But I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I don't. I think people can still be, like myself, people can still be excited for what could happen tonight on Monday Night Raw, but we still openly know why WWE are doing it. Everyone knows exactly why WWE had Big E announce that he plans to cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase tonight. Of course it's got to do with ratings. Everything in pro wrestling does, but WWE is far more transparent about it and far more reactionary about it. And when you look at previous events that have happened over the course of the last few weeks, certainly Dynamite on Wednesday and the return of Monday Night Football, you know exactly why they're doing it. And pointing that out isn't necessarily being negative, it's just pointing out facts. And unfortunately, WWE has built this cynicism into their own audience through illogical booking and bad practices. I'm excited about tonight's possible outcome of Monday Night Raw when it comes to Big E, but I don't trust WWE. It's like being in a bad relationship. I've been hurt before. I've been hurt before multiple times when you think someone's going to cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase and it doesn't happen, and then you realize WWE pulled a fast one. They got away with it. You remember when it was Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman at SummerSlam in 2018? And it was Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. And before the match, out comes Braun Strowman, and everyone went, right, we're going to get Braun Strowman cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase. This is when he was over. And people were excited and thought he could potentially become the Universal Champion. And people thought, great. And then actually what happened? He was ringside for most of the match. Eventually, he gets taken out. Lesnar attacks him. Reigns attacks him. Reigns wins the title. They get out of there. And then you realize at the end of the show, they pulled a fast one. They got me. They made me think that Braun Strowman was going to cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase. They managed to quiet the crowd because the crowd didn't want to see Roman Reigns win the Universal title, but they also didn't want to see Lesnar as the champion either because he'd been champion for ages. And Braun Strowman came out and they thought, hey, they're going to give us what we want. And in reality, they didn't do that, but they pulled a fast one. And you kind of, after the show, you look around and go, they got me. And that's the cynicism, because you've been hurt in the past. You've been hurt in the past and you've been fooled in the past as well. And I think that's where the cynicism comes from. It doesn't come from a place of disrespect to Big E. It doesn't come from a place of not being excited for Big E to potentially become the WWE Champion. It comes from a point of, I know there's a real possibility that Raw could end tonight, and they've teased Big E cashing in the whole show. They don't do it, and it's a way of just popping a rating, and then next week Raw will be boring again. Or popping a rating, but we still get Bobby Lashley versus Goldberg for the WWE Championship at Crown Jewel, or something like that. Again, this is the company that had Goldberg defeat The Fiend at Super Showdown last year. You know, we know where their priorities lie. So when we see something like this, we go, that's great, but I'm at the point where seeing is believing. And that's the thing. That's the thing with it all. But look, guys, we'll have to wait and see. As always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on this big WWE news story we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Get the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or having come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.